Welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Today we're working on the purple hexagon, or actually it's a honeycomb quilt. The honeycombs have a little bit of a different design from a hexagon. A hexagon is a little more square in nature, and this is a little more rectangle in nature, but it is a six-sided shape. We started working on this. We're using a honey bun of fabrics, and I have right now cut one strip of each fabric. So I had 8 strips of fabric. I was getting about 19 pieces of fabric per strip, and that's still where we are right now working on this project. We talked a little bit about design, and as it is, when you start making the pieces and you have similar shaped items, you can kind of play with them. It's like a creative puzzle where you're designing the picture yourself instead of recreating what someone else has created. So actually getting to this point helps you visualize what that quilt top is going to look like, what you want it to look like. So as I was working on this, I started playing around with them, laying them out into the designs that we talked about, putting the like fabrics together. And what I realized was I had a design that I liked better than what we talked about last time. Call it quilter's prerogative. So we're going to make a little change up in that, and I'll show you in a minute what the new design is. But right now I want to talk about a few things in making these hexes that could be helpful to you if you're following along with a project of your own. So in doing this, what I want to remind you is to be sure that you punch holes in your paper pieces. It doesn't matter what shape the hole is, although I find that a regular round hole will allow you to get that crochet hook into the hole easier. But any hole punch you have will work. And you can get them out without the hole, because that's what I forgot to do. I was so excited about getting started with this project that I started working on some. And this one, for example, has no hole in it. So it's a little more cumbersome and persnickety to get the paper out when you need to, but it can be done. But this will make your life easier, and you'll be able to pop those pieces out. You'll have less damage to the piece, and you certainly will be able to reuse it over and over again. That allows you to recycle the papers. Now, the next thing I want to add to this is what we talked about our shapes. We were either going to go with, I thought the last time we talked, we were going to go, these aren't quite the same fabric, but you can see. We were going to go with a shape, kind of a square or circle. It was where we had 4 that were coming together on the diagonal edges, and they were coming together like this. I think if you look back at some of the pictures I've posted or the video that we talked about this, you'll be able to see a little more clearly. But like I said, when I started working on it, I found something that I liked even better. And this is the new pattern. It is a series of 4 hexagons put together, depending on how they're sitting, in kind of a cross shape or T. And then if you twist it around just slightly, you get an X pattern. So when you put those together, they nestle in closely with each other. It's going to make it very purple, and that's what I want for this. I don't think it's going to be a huge quilt, because this is about, I would say this is 2 strips of fabric, and we have 16 strips of fabric. So 8 times bigger. It's not going to be huge, but we can always add borders. We could add some decorative touches around the outside if we want to. Lots of options, but I found this one to be exactly what I was looking for. I'm also trying to alternate the pattern so you have a darker fabric next to a lighter fabric, a fabric that is more dense in its not its texture, but its design, versus one that's more dense, one that's less dense, and vice versa. So I think that by doing this with these 8 fabrics, we'll be able to make pieces like this and then piece these pieces together to make a larger quilt top. So that's where we are. I don't know exactly what size it's going to be, but like I said, we're going to work with that. Now, in between these pieces, there's not a whole lot of room for your constant fabric. And this one is going to be just a plain white fabric. It's a leftover piece from another quilt that I made. I think I have about a yard of it, so I think it's going to be plenty for these little tiny 1-inch pieces that go in between the X's and the T's, or the X's and the crosses. A tip that I will give you, though, is as you're putting these together, I would recommend that you go ahead and add the white pieces in, at least on half of these, because when you have an area, let's say like this one, where you've got these 2 pieces missing, you've already got these all hooked together, and you're having to go in there and put that little tiny piece of fabric in the middle and whip stitch it on all 4 sides, it is a little difficult to get to. It's a little difficult to hold it because the papers are still in, so they're stiff. I mean, you can't crumple it up in your hand like you do regular fabric to get to where you want to be. It takes a little more manipulation in the way that you hold it. So moving forward with this, what I'm going to do is start adding at least 2 of the white squares with every 4 piece that I complete. And then when I'm adding them together, I'm not having to go so far into the design to grab it and whip stitch in. That will be great. And in being able to do this project with only 2 packages of honeycombs, that's 200 pieces, we're going to have to, as we go, take pieces of the pattern out of the middle. So on this one, you should not take the pieces out along the outside, but any place where you have a fabric piece that is completely circled with other fabric, you can take that one out. So right now on this one, I've been able to take this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one's out of it. And as I, for example, add these 2 white pieces here, then I can take this one out and this one out and this one out. And then moving on, adding more pieces, I can take more out. So I'm constantly recycling through those. Also, when I get more comfortable about how these are all going to join together, then I can start putting the pieces either together individually onto this. For example, the piece that should go, or the design, I should say, that should go right here is this fabric. So I can take, and I have to be careful because these 2 are so similar. I have to take one of those, and that's the one just with the swirls. Don't think I have very much of that. Let's try something different. Let's say that we're going to work here. So the fabric that goes next to this, which is the palest of all these fabrics, is this little, I'm going to call it a little calico looking purple. So it's a purple background with little tiny flowers, this one. So this is the one that's going to go next here. And what I can do, it's going to go just like that. Look at there. So I can add this white spot. I don't know if you can see that. This white spot, and then I can add this without having to make a whole 4-piece unit if I don't want to. So that could save you some time depending on how you're working this. If you're growing it from a small piece out, or if you're making units and adding units together, that's strictly your choice. There are pros and cons to each one, and it would be better for you to decide what works for you. You might want to try one little section doing it one way and then one little section doing it another way until you decide what works best for you. I think that's all I had for you today. Again, don't forget to punch your holes. That will help you greatly. And we had a design change. We're probably going to have to cut the other pieces. And in the meantime, I'm going to have fun with all of these honeycombs. Have a great day. Don't forget to like us and subscribe so that you can see all of our videos. And we hope to see you next time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.